Another serious health complaint about these devices is what's known as dirty electricity, caused by the converter between DC and AC current. It appears that utilities do not wish this aspect of the health issue to become widely known.
I can't tell you how many people have called me who became dreadfully ill the minute one of those got put on their house. Dirty electricity is, the best synonym is electrical pollution. We understand air pollution. There's clean air, there's polluted air. There's clean electricity, there's polluted electricity. Dirty electricity is the major pollutant that comes into your house on your wires, riding piggyback on the 60 cycle.
So we're going to attach this to the panel. All right. And now we're going to measure electricity running through the smart meter. All right.
Okay.
Right now the switch isn't thrown. As you can see, there's nothing happening.
Yep.
So we're going to turn this on.
Whoa!
Right. So we've got quite a bit of distortion going on. All right.
And that tick, that's the smart. Listen to it.
Yep.
Wow.
So we're going to try to catch it when it transmits.
Yeah. That didn't look like that when we just had. Wow, we just had the analog going.
Right. So I've had enough of that.
That was a lot of transmissions too in just a small amount of time.
And we're seeing this with the new smart meters.
Yeah, they're more active.
Much more active.
Yeah.
It's not just the 900 megahertz that's
the microwave.
That's the microwave effect. But this effect is much greater. So this is not like your baby monitor. This isn't like your cell phone. This is like no other device you're exposed to, because it's using all the wiring that travels through this panel as an antenna. So it's an energized antenna.
Because it's connected to it.
Correct. It's the largest antenna, and you're exposed to this 24/7 if you're in the house 24/7. This doesn't stay in the wiring.
Right.
It actually radiates 6 to 8 feet from the wire.
Many people involved in the smart meter issue are focused on the 900 megahertz frequency, which is the microwave transmission, but none of us knew that there were these other frequencies sort of hidden in that and are being transmitted as well. So in my opinion, this is why people are getting damaged, why people who previously could handle all their wireless gadgetry, their Wi-Fi and their cell phone, and then when they get the smart meter in their house, all of a sudden their world falls apart.
Did you hear about people coming to you as far as having complaints about illness?
We were made aware of health complaints following installation of smart meters, and we wanted to verify this using our field work. So I measured the field of about 30 different people while they stood 1 foot in front of the smart meter, and in every single case the human energy field was obliterated as they stood in front of the smart meter. We wanted to then verify this at the physical level using dark field microscopy. And then we also did a control group to find out if the old analog meters had the same effect on the blood as the smart meter. So in our first slides, what we see is normal cells, and the structure of the cells is intact and sound. This is what we would expect from a normal sample. With the subject standing 1 foot in front of the analog meter, there were no significant changes to these blood samples in any of the 3 that we tested. In our second set of tests, we're using the smart meter. Before the exposure, we see the same thing as we saw in the first samples. Normal cell walls, fairly separated and looking healthy. So after 2 minutes of exposure in front of the smart meter at about 1 foot away, we see a totally different story. Sample 1, you can see a lot of degradation in the cells. The cell walls have been broken, and you see changes in the cells which are called mycoplasma. It shows a mutation to the cell. In the second sample, we see a different type of degradation to the cell membranes. You can see a corrugation here. This is called bottle cap formation, and it's known that this occurs due to oxidation or exposure to free radicals. So this third subject, when we did her sample, she had to be pulled away from the meter after 45 seconds because she complained about an increasingly severe headache. And here you see a phenomenon called rouleau, where the red blood cells are stacking up. which makes it very difficult for the blood to deliver oxygen to the tissues as they would be their normal function. Every single one of these is a degradation. Every single one of these shows a trauma to the blood cells, and that came from something, and the only variable was the smart meter. The good news in all this is the patient and the blood can return to normal once they have been removed from the influences of these stressors.
So this thing about electrosensitive, 3 or 5% of people are affected and everyone else is okay, I mean, what do you have to say about that?
There are changes whether they feel them or not. Maybe they're not out there complaining about it or trying to make other people aware of what it's doing to them, yet they're still being affected by it.
A considerable amount of research shows that developing brains and bodies of children are much more affected than adults. And there are clear indications of a link between increased electromagnetic fields and autism spectrum disorders.
We took 10 autistic children and went back to the sleeping location where the mother was when she was pregnant with that child and compared it with the sleeping location of a mother that gave birth to healthy children. We had 10 mothers in that group, 10 mothers in this group, and in the group of the autistic children, we found that the measurements that we got for the microwave exposure was elevated compared to the group of children that were normal. The fetus is affected. The exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields has become the first factor that could be isolated ever in autism that could predict autism.
The radio frequency radiation work that we did was supported by Motorola. The relationship was really very cordial and very stress-free, but only up until we started generating data. These folks were very, very upset and began to talk about how are they going to handle this, what sort of spin can we put on this, what can we expect from this, and from that point on the relationship changed. What we saw was that Motorola began to exert more and more control over the work, telling us what to do, telling us how to write abstracts, what to say in the abstracts, what to say in the papers, how to do the work. No, don't do this. Yes, do it this way. This was unacceptable. I had completed our study of DNA damage, and I submitted the final report to Motorola. They simply weren't willing to accept my interpretation of my study, my evaluation of my study, my knowledge of science at that point, and tried to urge me not to publish the study.
When I filed my initial complaint, Central Maine Power responded with a 250-page, basically rebuttal on why smart meters are so safe, and they hired Exponent, which is a science and consulting firm that has represented the tobacco industry. They've represented the asbestos industry. So this is a firm that industry hires to prove that dangerous products are safe.
Despite industry's attempts to hide the truth, the science is done. There are very likely more studies that show a biological effect from electromagnetic frequencies, or EMF, than any other single area of focus in all of science. The site emfportal.org, as of late 2016, catalogs a whopping 23,800 studies. PowerWatch UK lists 1,659 studies on EMF. Of those, 1,032 found effects. A further 370 had other important insights or findings, and only 257 did not find effects. I began to reluctantly see the insanity exhibited by the actors within our captured government, prepared to risk everything, even their own children's futures. Globalist profiteers are fast-tracking agendas like smart meters and now 5G, so they can reap billions in the process of normalizing unlawful surveillance.